Welcome to 12 Gauge Investigative.
In the shadows where the truth hides deep, echoes of the lost and the secrets they keep. Cold cases burn in the back of your mind. We dig through the dark, one clue at a time. This ain't fiction, this is blood, this is truth. 12 Gauge Investigative, justice uncaged. We ask the questions they're too scared to say, shining a light where the guilty pray. From killers to whispers, we won't look away.
All right. Happy Sunday to you all. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. If this is your first time to my channel, I hope that you enjoy what you see here, what we discuss here, and all the things that we deep dive into here. First of all, I'd like to discuss a little bit and let people come in to the chat before I start what I'm going to do. I've put some things in the shorts that maybe you could enjoy. There's a couple things in there that, I hope that you find funny. I mean, there's some things in there that, you know, just just to get just to get yourself through the weekend. It's Monday tomorrow, and I always like to do a Sunday, sometimes a Serenity Sunday, but today I was uh I was just thinking about some other things because I saw something yesterday that I wanted to talk about that I didn't get a chance to, and it really intrigued me because it really broke down something that in a way that I hadn't seen it before. This is by Law and Crime, and it has a lot of interesting factual stuff that many people don't believe in this stuff, but um, yeah, some funny things in my shorts, you know, but it has to do with Idaho, just like I did last night, and I want to play it because I thought it was well done by the producers. It seems like now that we have more stuff out there, more people are able to really bring the information together in a way that's able to be discussed and it's not so quizzical as it once was. This has to do with law and crime, and it talks about the new evidence in Brian Koberger's Idaho murders. So let's go ahead and get started. And like always, I have to stop this every so often to discuss it so that I don't get copyrighted. I'm feeling kind of patriotic today, I guess. I have the Texas flag up behind me. That is where I'm from. That's my home state. And I'm very proud to be a Texan. Um, Nothing against any other states, but you know.
What happened that night changed everything.
After nearly 3 years, some measure of justice for the victims on King Road. And now we're seeing some of the evidence collected against the murderer in all black.
Start to build this profile of all of the behaviors that he did, especially around the time of the crime. He set up his device to be dumb, minimally collecting data.
And those close to the investigation are sharing their stories and thoughts on the case.
Even with my almost 18 years of law enforcement, I've seen a lot of things, and I was not prepared for that.
And I do understand that there are some people that might come into the chat with some different perspectives on this case. By no means are you unwelcome here. You are welcome here. You're welcome to have your opinion and to have, your voice be heard. But we do agree to disagree in here because there's a lot of times when we do have difference of opinion. And especially now, the only reason I'm playing this stuff is not to debate whether it's guilty or not guilty. It is more just getting the information out there so that we can discuss this.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. The case against Brian Koberger is closed, and that means the case file is open. For more than 2 years, the case had been shrouded in secrecy. A draconian gag order kept lawyers and investigators from talking about the case publicly. For weeks in late 2022, the families of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin could only wait and hope that the monster who murdered their children could be identified through DNA testing, and it happened. Brian Koberger was identified as the source of the DNA on a K-bar knife sheath found next to Maddie's leg. Pennsylvania State Police moved in on the Washington State University student in the early morning hours of December 30th, 2022. Koberger maintained his innocence as his attorneys tried again and again to have the death penalty stricken as a possible punishment. Through pretrial motions and hearings, we learned that Koberger bought a K-bar knife, sheath, and sharpener on Amazon more than 8 months before the murders, that he was driving his white Hyundai Elantra that night, and that his cell phone was off during a 2-hour time that covered the time of the murders. Then there was this eerie selfie taken 6 hours after the murders in the bathroom of...
What's interesting to me is now after all that we know, all that we've been told, all that we've been shown, whether it be the documents, whether it be other documentaries, whether it be the hearings that we've heard, this picture right here really speaks volumes to me. It always did, but now looking at it, his knuckles, his hand does look swollen compared to looking at his hand when he was signing a paper in one of the photos that was released recently. We've shown that photo before, but he had skinnier hands. This hand obviously is bruised, and there was a lot of people, there had been a lot of people that have said and stated that hand is bruised. That hand is swollen. Those knuckles are reddish. It looks like a hamburger mitt right there. I mean, looking at it, it's really, really condensed, but I don't know what you believe. Share your thoughts in the chat.
Koberger's apartment in Pullman, a congratulatory thumbs up. Koberger took a lot of selfies of himself. He seemed to be obsessed with his own self-image and with serial killers, including Ted Bundy. More on that very, very shortly. Now that Koberger has been sentenced and he's in prison for the rest of his life, those who were intimately involved in the case are free to talk about it. I've talked to several of the key players, including Moscow's police chief, and we've also obtained records that help tell this horrific story about 4 lives stolen in the middle of the night for no reason at all.
I knew typically when I get a phone call on a day off like that, it's usually something not good. I certainly didn't expect to hear the news that we had not only a homicide, but a quadruple homicide. And my initial reaction was, quite honestly, disbelief. I thought, well, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, not only are homicides in Moscow very rare, but the idea that we had a quadruple homicide, my brain just didn't comprehend it initially. But the folks on the other side.
So think about that. If his brain didn't comprehend it, how could the surviving roommates' brains have comprehended it? And they were living in the moment as the crime was taking place. Make that make sense to me, because here, someone that works on the force says he couldn't wrap his mind around it. But we expect the 2 surviving roommates to ultimately be clear and available for every detail that went on in that horrific mind, in that horrific time frame.
The line said, well, it's a thing, so get your stuff on and get into work. And that's just what I did.
Moscow police officer Mitch Nunez was the first officer to arrive at 1122 King Road. He believes he's responding to a call for an unconscious person.
Where's she at? Yep, where's she at? Where's she at?
Yes.
Where at? Up here?
Up here. You got to call for them that someone, they're looking normal. I just came here checking here and see what I just found. And I checked this using the video that she's. And I didn't check them yet, but I'm pretty sure.
13. Okay, do it.
I don't know if they're still in here or not. I really just came in here. I grabbed the knife. They're like
1370. We're clear. Let me just secure the outside first.
go to the front door.
There's a back entry. I was going to start taping it all off.
Brian's taking the outside off.
Okay.
Where's the other?
There are 2 right here. I got in there. Shut it down in there.
Nunez was dispatched to a call for an unconscious woman. Instead, Hunter Johnson, Ethan Chapin's best friend, led him to Xana's bedroom, where Ethan and Xana had been attacked and brutally murdered. Hunter had seen this first and sent Bethany and Dylan out of the house.
Dude. All right.
You're so right, Chris. All the officers that responded and saw this horrific stuff, they have to live with it as well. You're so right on that. That is a great comment. Nobody got to leave this residence seeing what they saw and automatically just turned their emotions off and said, well, it's just another homicide. No, nothing like that. Nothing of the sort. But Hunter Johnson supposedly shielded the other girls from having to see that kind of trauma. But just because you didn't see it doesn't mean that you're not going to react to it whenever you find out exactly what happened.
Okay. Nobody's allowed to leave for now, okay? Just stay here for me, please.
So imagine this. It went from a unconscious person to a quick homicide in a matter of seconds. He was responding to an unconscious person. And then as he entered that room, it became a homicide investigation, a homicide crime scene.
You know the... Okay. Here. Can you guys go over to the dumpster for me, please?
So if you don't know, once the officers arrive and they find out that it is indeed a crime scene, you have to put the police tape up, you have to secure the scene, and then you go looking to make sure that the perpetrator is still not in the residence. You're securing the scene so nothing gets out, nothing gets in that's not supposed to be there when you arrived. The reason he didn't do this when he first got there, because it was an unconscious call. It was not a homicide call. Had it been a homicide call, then probably the moment he got there and saw what he saw, he would have instantly done what he did instead of interviewing the girls. He was tapering it off so that evidence was not contaminated.
We had a lot to do on the outside. We had our initial responding officers helping to lock down the scene as they should, and they did a great job of cordoning off the area. We had multiple people that were around that area, college age folks that we needed to identify, we needed to talk to, we needed to start that investigation and start finding out, okay, where do we go from here?
Have you heard about Upside? It's a great app that gives you cash back on things like gas, groceries, and takeout. Upside gives you real money that you can transfer from the app.
And she ran downstairs, and I kept calling her name, and she wouldn't answer. And then I saw the guy. I just locked the door, and I ran downstairs. We don't know what's going on. All I heard was I heard go upstairs. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
And upstairs to the very top?
Yeah, that's where her room is.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I heard her walking up. I heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he was wearing all black and like this mask, which is covering his forehead and his mouth. And then I locked the door, and I called, and I didn't know what to do.
This was at 4
a.m., yes. Okay. And so then I just ran down to
You left here?
I left my room down to she's that one with the white blinds at the very bottom. Okay. I ran down there and we talked, and we just locked the door. We didn't think anything of it. We're like, nothing happens in Moscow, so we just tried to go to bed. And then we woke up, and it was weird because none of our roommates were up, and we called all of them. They were not waking up, and so me and like, this is weird. So I called and to come over, and then that's when all this happened.
This is Dylan's initial police interview.
I have to ask the chat this, okay? She said, none of our roommates are waking up. I was calling, I was texting, I was doing all this stuff. Like I said, this is hindsight. We're able to see this at this moment, not as it was happening. I'm asking the chat. So if you were in her position at that point, she said she was scared. Okay. So she said she was scared. If you're scared and you're calling your roommate, they're not answering, you saw this suspicious looking guy in your home, do you believe that, a lot of people believe that she should have called 911 at that point. But what would she have said to them? What would she have said to 911 that would have made a difference in the outcome of what the officers found that next morning, 8 hours later? Talk to me, chat. Talk to me. And I'm being serious right now, so I really would like some serious comment. What would really have changed the outcome in this, if anything? Because I want to get your input on it. Because there's a lot that has been stated about perhaps if 911 would have been called at that point, the one that perished could have been saved. Talk to me. What are your beliefs behind this? Have you always thought this, or have you changed your mind throughout the case? I mean, what did you think when you heard way back when about, okay, there were two surviving roommates, neither one of them called 911, and then you heard the coroner state, well, the wounds were so severe that they couldn't have been saved. Well, I'd like to hear your thought on it, Walt. I mean, Walot. Would you, because we've been told, if there could have been a trauma team, there could have been surgeons, there could have been all kinds of stuff right there. 911 could have got there in 2 minutes, but in those 2 minutes, they still would not have been saved. So I don't know if y'all believe that or you don't. Talks among yourselves and I'll play the rest of this. Thank you for your contribution, by the way.
Later tell police that she believed the woman crying that she heard was actually Xana. And despite reporting by other outlets that Dylan said she heard the man say, "It's okay, Kaylee, I'm going to help you," Dylan never said that.
How old is Kaylee?
Over 21. I believe she's 21 or 22. Sorry, I don't remember.
It's okay. You're doing great.
Thanks.
I'm asking a lot of you, so I appreciate you. You're doing very well.
Do you know if the other two girls are upstairs or not?
Right now, what we got to do is we got to process this whole thing.
That makes sense.
I don't know what I'd be permitted to.
That's fine.
Right
That's
now, okay.
fine. I understand.
Okay, let's go back. I just want to make sure we're getting everything, so you're sure.
I mean, because let's fast forward it to that next day, and they called 911. And even the 911 operator was kind of giving them a little bit of a hard time because they were trying to tell her what was going on, and she didn't want to hear any of that. She just wanted the basics. Okay, where do you live? What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. Stick to the moment. Okay, so she wasn't trying to hear that. So if you're calling, and I've always said this, if you're calling at 4 a.m. after Brian leaves, 4:23, and you're calling 911, you say, let's say she said the same thing. There's something that happened in our house. We don't know what. There's something going on. Okay, well, can you go and check? I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't want to go check. So how can we help you? If you don't know what's happening, can you tell us what's going on? At that point, do you believe that anything? I mean, I don't believe that the 911 operator would have been much of assistance at that point. Yeah, it's possible they could have called Brian faster. They called 911 maybe. That's always a possibility. You're right, Jeff.
About 4 this morning?
Yes, it was 4:10.
You first noticed a guy.
Well, I first noticed Kaylee go upstairs and scream and run downstairs.
So 4 this morning, went upstairs.
Yeah.
To the way top.
Yes, to her room with Murphy the dog.
Okay.
And then
you heard Kaylee scream?
I heard her scream and run as fast as she could downstairs, and she said someone's here.
She ran downstairs?
Yes, I could hear it. You can hear everything pretty much. I heard her run downstairs really fast. And then I heard Murphy barking a lot.
Okay.
And then I heard her going to I think it was the bathroom, and I remember her sobbing, And I just remember hearing this guy's voice and I didn't recognize, saying, "You're gonna be okay, I'm gonna help you." But it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't in like a nice way, it was like a weird way, like a weird tone.
You're gonna be okay. I'm gonna help you.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear anything from Kaylee anymore? At that
No,
point?
after that I didn't hear anything. So then I kept calling for her name. I called on my phone, I called Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee, none of them answered. So then I opened up the door to look, and that's when I saw the guy pass by. He looked at me, but he didn't come towards me or say anything, which was really confusing to me. I don't understand that. And I'm pretty sure he went out the side door.
And you're right, Chris. And you're right, Jeff. All of you are giving some great comments. You're right, Chris. It was stated that Kaylee's facial wounds would have killed her by themselves, not much less the stabbing that she took. You're right on point. You're right on point. And thank y'all so much for being here. Midwest, Mountain Mama, Jeff H., Chris, Southwest Firefly, thank you for coming on in. Rondi, and anybody else who I forgot. Walt, Walot, and PKC. Thank y'all all for being in here. You know, it's sad to think about that the facial injuries were so bad that those would have killed the individual even without the stabbing. So what she's saying right here, I believe, is some of the things that were eventually put into the PCA and some of the things that were eventually discussed throughout the true crime community. You know, as she's talking about the individual that she saw all in black. She's talking about what she heard, what she did, and then we got the digital downloads of their phones, which basically made it even more clear about what was going on at that point. Chris says, yeah, in a perfect world, Dylan called 911 right away, but that's thinking logically, which she wasn't. You're right. Because, I mean, she's hysterical right now. Do you believe that she was probably hysterical? Yeah, very true, Rondi. Bethany didn't call either. But Dylan's the one to get the slack for not calling 911. You know, that's a good thought, too. Or Bethany didn't call either.
And then I called and said she thought maybe there was a fire or like a firework. We didn't know. She heard this loud noise and there was a light, I guess.
Did you hear like a pop, like a bang?
I don't know. Did you hear it bang?
It's what you heard.
When asked why she believes she was spared after the male suspect saw her, she said she does not know why, and she does not believe anyone ever tried to open her door during the time he was in the house, and he could have easily have done so, and why he would have passed by her room multiple times. She volunteered that to come through the sliding glass door, the person would have had to have scaled a tall wall. She advised the suspect would have known her room would have been occupied because he appeared to have known the layout of the house. She also said it could have been someone who was in the house last year when other girls were living in the house. Crime scene investigators processed the scene on King Road starting the afternoon the murders were reported. But on December 3rd, they went back and collected more evidence, including beer cans. One was collected from Bethany's bedroom. Photos were taken of her vanity. Also collected beer cans on the stairs of the home. And in the living room, a black backpack was photographed. It was leaning up against the wall. It's not uncommon for investigators to go back to a crime scene to collect other evidence for testing. Detectives also interviewed a former roommate who had lived at the house but had moved out. The report states, Sergeant Hoxie asked while she was living there if there were any break-ins or if she heard of a stalker. There would be times she would wake up and would see the sliding glass door was unlocked. She thought it might have been from someone forgetting to lock the door after having people over the night before. The former roommate also told detectives it wouldn't be hard to get into the house. Sergeant Hoxie asked why she thought someone would want to harm her friends. She thought it was someone who was watching. She was always afraid of that. She always had an uneasy, weird feeling at the house, which is one of the reasons why she didn't want to go back. She felt the house was easy to get into and easy to watch because they didn't have any blinds over the windows and the layout of the house. She had said that the sliding glass door was broken at one point. If the door was jiggled just right, the door would unlock. If the front door was locked, you had to enter the code on the keypad, but if the deadbolt wasn't locked, the door could be opened.
And that's why I believe at the very beginning they were stating that the house was targeted for the simple fact that it was easy to get into the home, you know? Like she just said, you could jiggle the sliding glass door and slide that bad boy and you're in. I'm not trying to start any alternative theories or anything like that, but that firework comment, the flash, whatever, under a door, that just brings a lot of whirling thoughts in my brain. I mean, we talked about it last night in Discord for a long time, and we had a lot of different opinions. No name calling, none of that was going on. It was cordial. And we did think that a light bulb could have been involved, not really blowing out, but it could have been something else related to a light bulb, maybe hitting the floor or whatever. Um, but that's a great thought. Hey, Allie, thank you for being here. Um, and that, I even pointed out possibly that the killer could have stepped on those Christmas lights and it would have been crackling and, sparking such as that as well. But, who knows what it was or if it was, I mean, because think about this. When you heard the cars driving down that road, did that not sound like a crackling sound to you? When you heard the Linda Lane footage and you heard that car driving up and down the Linda Lane, or by the Queen Road Apartments. I'm sorry, I'm thinking here. Did that gravel on the road not make a crackling sound? And the light could have been the DoorDash driver pulling into the driveway. The light goes under her door because what? She's shining the light into the house. She backs up and she's gone. That's just something else to think about. You know what I mean? Um, but there are crackling sounds as the cars are driving. I've heard those on Linda Lane on the video of crackling because somebody was saying that that was a gun being cocked at one point, which it was not. It was the crackling of the tires going over the gravel. You know what I mean? So it seems like great minds think alike. I kind of think the flash on the DoorDash drive, his camera taking a picture of the bag being left at the front door, could have been what Bethany saw. Exactly. Exactly. I mean that's logical. It's logical. Um, so let's keep going. See, we have some great-minded people in here. I mean, we don't all have to be correct or we don't all have to be wrong. I mean, Jeff and I were joking about a beer can last night about it propelling off the banister, hitting the wall, opening up and propelling into the bathroom, and we're just having a good time with it because, you know, who's to say what really she saw or what she heard? But all these ideas are great. All these ideas are great.
I tried to call Maddie and Ethan and Xana and all them at like 4:20.
So you called
I tried to call all of them and
Maddie?
answering, but
At what time?
4:30 and 4:22. And then 4:21. And then Ethan at 4:22. And then Carrie at 4:31.
So I believe that the initial interview, which is this right here, she's given him specific times that she attempted to call. So all this stuff was evidence trying to figure out the timeline, trying to figure it out. And that's what he's trying to do. I believe the Dillon testimony in court, had there been a trial, would have been nothing more than to allocate the evidence of a timeline and what she heard, what she saw, and how that could have led to Mr. Koberger based on visual, his height, his weight. Even if it wasn't clear, she still gave an adequate amount of information that nobody else knew. How would she have known all that if she didn't see it? You know what I'm saying? So she could have been, cross-examined by the defense, but we didn't get that opportunity.
I thought they were supposed to.
4:31.
Yeah.
So no answer, and then did you go to sleep after that?
Yeah, I just kind of fell asleep again. I was like half awake.
Okay. And then what throughout your day did you got up at what time today?
I woke up, my jaw was really bad. I took some Advil at like 6 or 7, and then I just went back to bed. So I figured no one would be up anyways. And then I didn't wake up until we called you guys again.
Okay. Moscow 70, can I get the time this call was generated?
Because this has been going on so long that a lot of people don't remember what the PCA said. They don't. They don't remember the timeline because we focused on so much other stuff that they've forgotten exactly what the PCA said, what it stated about him going around the corner, going to pull into the driveway, and ultimately almost got stuck. Then he pulled back out. Then he drove back down, made a 3-point turn, then came back around, went to the back and parked. So all that stuff is being witnessed by what? What or who witnessed him doing this is what I want to know. See, these are the type of questions that I have. Because these things are in the PCA. And I've always wondered, because in my mind, as you can see, 712 right here. And I'm always going to talk about that camera because I remember hearing about a camera at that residence. Nobody believes me. But I believe there was a camera there at 712.
Copy, thank you. All right. I remember seeing anybody in there that wouldn't belong?
Downstairs the whole time with my door locked. That's why I always sit there.
Okay.
But how could the 1112 camera have caught him turning into the driveway, getting stuck, backing up, and then going back down and making the 3-point turn? I get that. But how could that camera have caught him going into the driveway? Because that's in the PCA. That's where, maybe I read it wrong. Maybe I read it wrong. I don't know. It's just intriguing to me. It really is.
You heard Nunez sigh. You have to imagine he just can't believe what he and the other officers have walked into. This would be a shock, even in a big city.
Is there anything else you want from me for now? I can start heading back. Yeah. So, okay, search warrant, as far as the search warrant goes.
Good description of the place.
Okay.
Get a couple photos and describe everything.
Okay.
What are you doing? Well, get in town. We've got a quadruple homicide. Yeah, it's 1122 Queen Road.
Yep, sounds good. And then I gotta grab my phone. You're looking for any shell casing?
Okay, I can go with that. Like I said, I'm not trying to prove my my theory that I'm right, y'all are wrong, nothing like that. I'm just holding my own thought on 712. You know what I mean? Unless I was hallucinating, and as weird as this case has gone on, I mean, because because at this point I believe he's in prison, right? But then I listen to other creators and they speak as if we're getting ready for the trial or we're getting ready for an appeal. And it's confusing in that retrospect. So I can see, I'm like, okay, am I really dreaming this? Is this the Mandela effect going on with me? What is really going on? You know what I mean? I don't know the answer to that. Well, that's an interesting question too. We don't know where he parked. I mean, I think they believe he parked behind the house directly in this tree line right here, like right here. He supposedly walked back in between these fences back up to the tree line because there are some stairs back there.
Knives, or just any indicia weapons used.
Weapons, signs of force, or tools to break into building, electronic devices, etc., etc.
Okay.
Main thing is
start getting the rough.
Just get the body of it.
Okay.
This date, this time, we were dispatched here.
Okay.
Prosecutor, when you get hold of the on-call prosecutor, tell them what we got. Let them know that you're working on a search warrant and the nature of it, and then we'll go from there. They'll have a long list.
Okay. Do you want these are the victims' names?
I don't need them at this point.
Okay.
I know probably.
Because didn't they say that these officers were really new on the job and they weren't very experienced? Isn't that what they said about these officers on the scene first?
Quick walkthrough and then go back.
Okay.
Corporal Payne, when he did his first initial walkthrough of the residence, saw the sheath and recognized it immediately as something that we needed to take a look at and start processing. And then when the Idaho State Police came in, they processed the scene. That sheath was immediately turned over, literally driven straight down to the Idaho State Police lab, forensic.
So the sheath was immediately driven down to the Idaho State lab. The sheath was taken to the lab. A swab wasn't taken to the lab. According to this gentleman, the sheath was driven to the lab. So there's countless stories about this sheath not going to the lab. They didn't look at this sheath. They only looked at the swab. So there that man just said that they specifically drove that sheath to the Idaho State Lab. There it is. I wish somebody would clip that because that way people will really hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Lab in Meridian and handed directly to the specialists down there to begin work on it. And they started working on it immediately.
The 4 college students who'd enjoyed a night out after the big football game the day before were dead. One officer said in his report that Kaylee was unrecognizable because of what had been done to her. Xana Kernodle was found in her second-floor bedroom, laying on her back, wearing a sweatshirt and underwear. She was ready for bed and had more than 50 stab wounds. Many were defensive wounds on her hands and arms. Ethan had been killed in his sleep. He was in Xana's bed and had wounds on his legs. Moscow police called Idaho State Police to assist them in processing the scene. And we're now seeing some of the photos that CSIs from ISP took. The photos start outside. It's dark. At that time of year, it gets dark around 4:30 in the afternoon. CSIs photographed the vehicles at the house, including Ethan Chapin's Jeep. They also photographed Kaylee's Range Rover. Remember, she went to Moscow that weekend to show off her new car and to hang out with her friends. Xana's car was also photographed, and Maddie's car was also examined. The photos show the side of the house where crime scene tape was wrapped around the area. The backyard, with a couch and string lights, is frozen in time. Those string lights would actually remain on for months after the murders. The sliding glass door potentially held clues and evidence. That's where the man in all black entered and exited the house. It was photographed from outside and from the inside of the house. The kitchen window was also photographed. There was a handprint on it, and at that time, there was no way to know whether it was relevant to the investigation or not. There was also a footprint in the snow that piqued the interest of investigators. It was documented with a ruler to show the length of the footprint. Could this belong to the killer, and did it show his path of travel? Inside the home, investigators also photographed the kitchen. The kitchen was important because the killer entered the home through the sliding glass door in the kitchen. Anna's DoorDash meal was delivered at...
You're so right about that, Allie. There was 500 amount of DNA on that sheath. He said, Jeff and I put that out today. I put mine in a short. He put his in a video form, I guess, uploaded. And you're right. There was a lot more DNA than people have been speculating on. There was a lot more. It wasn't just trace DNA. It wasn't just a touch of DNA. There was a lot of DNA on that knife or on that button snap. And to see what they're talking about here, it's interesting to me. See, I was wrong about that bag. I was doubling down on that bag so hardcore. I said, there's no way that Jack in the Box bag can be part of the crime scene. They would have tagged and bagged that. They wouldn't have just left that there. I was wrong. I'd like to tell you that today. I was wrong. They did leave it there. You know what I mean? They did leave it there. They left the French fries on the microwave. I was wrong. You know, it's humbling to know at times when you're wrong, because that means that there's room for growth. But there's a lot of people that cannot admit when they're wrong.
3:59 a.m. The Jack in the Box bag is on the counter. You can see inside the bag, and the food has obviously been removed, so we know that Xana at least ate some of it. The bag is clearly marked with her name, and her fries from the meal can be seen on top of the microwave. Some are still in the carton. Bottom of the table shows the beer pong cups and a knife sitting next to it. That is the knife that Hunter Johnson told police he grabbed that morning for protection after discovering Ethan and Xana murdered. This is a closer shot of that knife. Other photos show a different view of the same room. It's the living room with the sectional couch and the TV in the cubby. There are also photos of the living room that show the beer pong table and that neon good vibes sign. This leads to the stairs to the third floor. Dylan Mortenson's bedroom is near the staircase across from the kitchen entryway. And this photo shows the stairs to the third floor and Maddie Mogan's bedroom door to the left at the top of the stairs.
So I got a text.
See, that's not true. Maddie's was not to the left. It was to the right. It's easy to get confused, and Jeanette. I got confused a lot myself. To the left is Kaylee's room. To the right is Maddie's. It's easy to get confused at the top of those stairs and get turned around. I get it. What this gentleman just says is going to blow your mind. It really is. It really is. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Chief Jerry Jenkins of WSU.
From Chief Rye on December 19th asking if I could meet with him at Moscow Police Department the next morning. And so I went to Moscow PD the next morning and met Chief Rye out in their lobby, and he walked me upstairs and we went into a room that included their entire investigative team. I think there were maybe 30 or 40 people in that room. So as soon as I walked in, I knew that they had something big and that it was somehow related to Washington State University. So they told me that they had developed a suspect based on DNA at the crime scene, and that suspect was a Washington State University graduate student by the name of Brian Koberger, who lived on the WSU campus in graduate student housing. And when I heard the name, it's somewhat of an unusual name. it took me a minute, but then I remembered that I had interviewed Brian Koberger, and I told the investigative team I had interviewed him previously for that intern position, and I had his resume and cover letter for that position that I could provide to them. And then after that, I collected information about his apartment where he lived and his graduate assistant student office that he shared with another PhD student, and in preparation to prepare a search warrant later. It was not a typical occupied type of an apartment.
Police department, search warrant, come to the door.
This is Koberger's living room. There's a love seat and a TV. There's also a closet. And inside that closet, it was pretty messy. But what was there was interesting given what we know now. The living room is sparse for sure. There's a love seat and a TV with an entertainment center and a small coffee table. The love seat was across from the TV with a closet to the side. Now, how often Koberger sat and watched TV? We just don't know. Inside the closet, there was a vacuum cleaner. CSIs photographed it and marked it as evidence, and they didn't know at that point what it could contain. They even photographed the canister that collects all of the stuff that it sweeps up. The closet shelves were full of papers, boxes, and other junk as if it had just been tossed in there haphazardly. It didn't appear to be in any order at all. On the other side of the closet, there was a black nitrile glove. It was photographed, and there were a couple of these. Remember, the killer was described as wearing all black. Also in the closet, a receipt from Walmart for a Dickies beanie and receipts from Marshall's in Moscow from August and September. Investigators also photographed a Target receipt from July 4th. That Target is in Moscow. Koberger bought a Fire Stick.
So I want to ask the chat, because I know a lot of you have read the documents, you've gone over stuff. Is there anything of substance that happened on July 4th anywhere in the documents? I mean, there would have been any kind of sense of him being in Moscow at that time? I mean, is there anything in the document that y'all have heard or read that would have been of any semblance on July 4th? Because they said the target was in Moscow. So do they have any kind of substantial evidence on July 4th, maybe seeing a ping close to the house or anything like that? Have y'all heard of any of that? Okay. Just throwing that out there.
Koberger also received a number of parking tickets. Those were found in the apartment and photographed. He had told a professor he found a way to outsmart the parking attendants. Inside Koberger's entertainment center, there were a number of books just kind of shoved in there. The topics all appear to be related to criminology. Investigators laid the books out to photograph them. Some of the titles were discussed in Koberger's papers, and they seem kind of ironic given the position he's in now. Mass Incarceration on Trial. Another book is entitled Why the Innocent Plead Guilty and the Guilty Go Free. One, Let the Lord Sort Them Out. This book was entitled Unsafe in the Ivory Tower, the Sexual Victimization of College Women. The book discusses how women react when they're sexually victimized. The book was shipped to the owner in 2012, according to the receipt that is with it. Koberger wrote about research topics,
Right.
offender decision-making, emotionality, and burglary with theft/material gain as the end. In one line,
I mean, if any of this stuff doesn't bring out any kind of red flags when you're investigating a crime, a quadruple homicide, yes, they probably did understood he was a criminology major. He had, he's going toward his PhD and all this stuff. But if none of this stuff that he was reading on was in any of those papers that they looked at, then he was reading it for his own personal use, for his own personal knowledge, kind of like the electronic stuff. They say, well, people look at porn all the time. They look at all this stuff all the time. But you know what? It's not porn. It's the type of porn that he was looking at that made it so damning on his part, you know? Yeah, there is a lot of red flags.
And Koberger wrote he intended to go into a prison to conduct research. The topic will be probed by way of in-person, semi-structured interviews in a correctional setting. The professor indicated that he or she would have a lot to say about that. Now, Koberger's writing is pretty formal and wonky. He was told by one professor to avoid flowery language. In another assignment, he reviewed a professor's work on sex offenders' myopic decision-making. He wrote another paper about the death penalty and ethics. A little bit of irony there. Koberger's classmates said he was the only student in their class who supported the death penalty. Koberger's freezer and refrigerator contained a number of vegan foods, including...
Isn't that ironic? He was the only one in the class that supported the death penalty, but yet his attorney was fighting to get it taken off the books. That is ironic right there.
Including frozen pizza, tater tots and almond milk, and vegan cheese. The freezer looks in parts as if the food is just kind of shoved inside the door. The bedroom showed Koberger's bed and closet. There were a number of shirts hanging in the closet and a few pairs of jeans, along with some other items for bedding, but not much else, just some hangers. Also in the bedroom, a computer on the desk. Around the computer, there was a bunch of dust as if it hadn't been cleaned in a while. Then there's the bathroom, where Koberger took that selfie the morning of the murders. You can see the mirror where he took that selfie, and the tub and tile appear to be very clean. There's no shower curtain. His lawyers would later say he threw it away frequently to prevent mold from growing. Investigators pulled apart the drain from the tub, probably hoping to find some DNA, but they didn't find any belonging to the victims.
The state police collected some.
Chad, let me ask you a question. Because I believe a lot of you have some insight on this. How much water must accumulate before mold starts acquiring on surfaces? Like how does mold really acquire on a shower curtain? I mean, I would believe that you'd have to have a lot of bacteria on that mold, on that shower curtain before it actually started accumulating mold. I mean, I might be wrong. Can somebody Google that or, ask Chat GBT or whatever, then put it in the chat? How much time does it take for mold to accumulate on a shower curtain? Because I'd like to know, because if you were changing his shower curtains that frequently, that is a little bit, like you said, OCD. But at the same realm, there was other parts of his apartment that were just trash. There was papers everywhere. There's all kinds of stuff. It doesn't make sense that he was obsessive about one area, but not obsessive about it all. You get what I'm saying?
Items, and we held on to it. They couldn't take it into Idaho yet without a court order since it's across state lines. So we held on to those items until a court order was obtained, and then Idaho State Police came over and picked up the evidence. We're doing a lot of communication with our campus. Students and faculty and staff were concerned and scared. This was, however, during winter break, so there were not a lot of people on campus at the time, but there were still students that would be coming back for the next semester and parents that had been following this. And so we spent a lot of effort with all of our campus partners, with our Dean of Students office and counseling and psychological services, president's office and the provost's office, just communicating with everyone about what we knew, what measures we're taking to keep our campus safe, and a commitment to keep everyone informed with the information we had.
Pullman Police Department released this surveillance video from the morning of the murders. It shows Brian
I know it's blurry. I know it's blurry, but there's the vehicle right there. Let me back it up.
Commitment to keep everyone informed with the information we had.
Pullman Police Department released this surveillance video from the morning of the murders. It shows Brian Kohberger's white Elantra driving home that morning at 5:20.
And that's a white car. I don't care who you are. Is there any doubters that this is a white vehicle? Let me slow this down a little bit. Because, you know, it's all about the bass. The bass, no treble.
It shows Brian Kohberger's white Elantra.
Right there. Does that not look white to you, or does that look green to y'all? Does that look green to y'all, or does that look white to y'all? It looks white to me, right under the lamp. But then they'll say, look, it looks like a really long car, like a Lincoln Continental or something.
Elantra driving.
God, can you imagine watching this on that kind of playback speed? Let's watch it one more time in real time. It's all about that bass.
Home
The
that
bass.
morning at 5:27 a.m. We'll slow it down for you. Take a look again. This camera is near Kohberger's apartment. Eventually, Kohberger was moved to Ada County in Boise after winning a change of venue motion. And then just weeks before jury selection was set to begin, Kohberger asked to change his plea.
With respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Prosecutors had planned to use this 3D model of the house on King Road to show jurors the strange layout of the house. The FBI actually built the model, but now there's no need for the model house.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
For the first time, the public is seeing some of what.
Okay, chat. Is everybody listening? All together, type in the chat. What is the word that you heard out of that man's mouth more than any other word? What was it that you heard him say? Type it in the chat. I want people to see this when they watch this on replay. I want them to see it if they watch it for the very first time. What is the word that came out of that man's mouth more than once? What was that word? There we go. Guilty. 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 Okay, so I'm not just hearing things, right? I'm not hearing things. I'm not hearing guilty all those times. I didn't make that up, right? I didn't hear that, telepathically. I didn't imagine that. Y'all heard it too, right? You heard Kitty? Okay. But y'all heard guilty, right? Let me back this up a little bit.
Plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
For the first time, the public is seeing some of what police saw when they went into the home on King Road. The families of Maddie and Ethan are asking a judge to permanently bar the release of the photos of Maddie and Xana's bedrooms. KTVB shared these photos that they received, and they show areas inside the home which are blurred and redacted. There are also images of the sliding glass door that Brian Kohberger entered the morning of November 13th, 2022, intent on carrying out murder. The photos also show handprints on the back window of the home, but we don't know who those belong to. Now, the Today Show also shared some of these photos from KTVB. One showed Maddie's boots on the ground. You can also see red Solo cups. The photos show a typical college house that one man destroyed, turning it into a horrific crime scene. For what reason? We still don't know. And whatever reason he gave would never make sense to any of us.
The release of the photos came after this photo of Brian Kohberger became public. It shows him shortly after his arrest on December 30th, 2022. Pennsylvania.
That's not really Brian. It's a psyop, right? Isn't that what we've been told? That's not really Brian. That's a psyop. That's a hologram, as Willott says. How many of you believe that that is Brian Kohberger right there on that bed? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Am I seeing things? Or is that really Mr. Kohberger in the flesh? Tell me what you think.
State police raided his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Kohberger was wearing all black that morning. The video from 1112 King Road was recorded from this camera. The house is right next door to where Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan were murdered. The Idaho Statesman video editors speed up the video by 15 times to show the next time that Kohberger pulls onto King Road at 3:38 a.m. and then leaves King Road at 3:40 a.m.
Yeah. So those of you that were in Discord last night, were y'all able to come to a conclusion? Did you actually hear a definitive statement coming out of 1122 Xana's room? Because I know that y'all were talking about something that you heard in this video. I didn't stay around long enough to listen to whether y'all got to a common ground or not. If you were in Discord last night, let me know if you came to a common ground and if y'all actually did hear the sentence that you thought you heard.
At 3:51 a.m., the DoorDash driver can be seen walking along the street. In her statement to police, she said she had trouble finding the address. She even used a flashlight to try to find the numbers on the house. She turns around at one point, and you can see her walking back toward 1122 King Road.
I just thought of something, guys. The DoorDash driver comes up to bring the food to the front door, right? She steps on a beer can, shines the light, knocks on the door, shines the light. It goes into... No, that won't add up either. That won't add up either. Never mind. My bad. No, my bad. We'll go with the light. The light bulb. Erase that statement.
Her flashlight in hand. Then at 3:56 a.m., the white Elantra turns onto King Road again and leaves at 3:58 a.m.
Yeah. So, Dolphin, can you put in the chat what are some of the other words that you heard? That could have been a 96 Ford Probe. I had a girlfriend that had one of those.
This time frame marks the beginning of the end of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan's lives at the hands of Brian Kohberger, again, for no reason at all. Brian Kohberger, dressed in all black, carrying a K-bar knife, sneaked into the house on King Road through the sliding glass door.
The camera that captured these images also captured sounds believed to have come from Xana's bedroom.
Now that you said that, Dolphin, I heard a little bit more too. I heard exactly what you just were talking about. It's not really audible, but you can, based on what you just said, it's extremely plausible that that could have really been what you heard.
The loud thud could have been Xana falling to the ground. Police reports reveal that Xana fought for her life. She had more than 50 stab wounds, many to her arms, hands, and face. She tried to fight off Bryan Kohberger. Now, all of this evidence in front of a jury would have been hard for the defense to counter. Yes, it was circumstantial evidence, but that can be very powerful when presented to a jury. All of it, the DNA, the car circling that area that morning and then speeding away, would have likely been too much for the defense to counter, and the death penalty, a possible firing squad, was on the table. And then there was the cell phone evidence. I spoke with two experts from Celebrate, Heather Barnhart and Jared Barnhart. They examined Kohberger's cell phone and laptop, and what they had to say was pretty interesting.
I had the exact same test phone, make, model, Android version, AT&T network, like everything aligned perfectly. I said to Jared, we have his exact phone. So we would replicate exactly what we found. So we would find these log files. We work with a really smart person, Josh Hickman, who is an Android expert. And we would reach out to Josh and say, do you know what this log is? What does this mean? So we recreated, not only did he physically power it off, he turned off Wi-Fi 2 days prior to the murder. He powered off his phone. It was at 100% battery. We're going to testify with 100% certainty that's what he did.
So, for those in the back that didn't hear what you said,
We're going to testify with 100% certainty that's what he did.
once again, for those in the back that didn't understand it,
Percent battery. We're going to testify with 100% certainty that's what he did.
Ultimately, he used incognito mode in Google Chrome to try to sort of obscure the records that could be recorded about his web history. You can manually go in and just clean things up, clear my history, like things like that. With some time, they do actually delete. But he turned off his Wi-Fi. And so making his device not able to look out there and beacon and talk to networks that he might have been near. He used NordVPN, which in and of itself, it's benign. It's not something that is necessarily a nefarious thing. Security conscious people use VPNs all the time. Sometimes people use VPNs to stream stuff from somewhere else in the world just for fun. But as you start to build this profile of all of the behaviors that he did, especially around the time of the crime, he set up his device to be dumb, minimally collecting data. And so as we started to tackle the evidence from the Android, it wasn't what's here, but very obviously what's not here. And then hyper-focusing on the minutes and hours before and after this void of time where his phone was powered off in the middle of the night. What normal would be, but it stood out to me I've done investigations for years and tons of mobile device extraction analysis. And seeing pornography is not weird. Seeing what someone is interested in is not weird. But the fact that this person had non-consensual, specifically only that, not.
once again,
Seeing pornography is not weird. Seeing what someone is interested in is not weird. But the fact that this person had non-consensual, specifically only that, not one other thing that was a consensual sex act. They were all like aggressive or drugged.
Was there anything?
So, for those of you that don't understand that, the man was looking at raping, drug inducing, violating women. Non consensual means that they wouldn't have been approving of that. So, the fact that you say viewing porn is normal, it may be if you're into that type of pornography that Brian was into, but non consensual means that he was in that hardcore realm. That was another red flag for the investigators. And if you can't see that, clean those glasses a little bit because this man just said it. One more time for those in the back.
And had non-consensual, specifically only that, not one other thing that was a consensual sex act. They were all like aggressive or drugged.
Was there anything else around that time period that you found that was out of the norm or unusual?
On his computer, so this is supposed to be his school computer. And according to reports that I have read, Jared and I did a really good job of staying out of the media, not reading things, not listening to things. But in our investigative calls, he was apparently a good student. He didn't miss, well, shouldn't say good student. He was an attentive student who didn't really miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up. He had huge gaps in usage from October 12th through November 16th on his computer. However, the computer, just like Jared said, everything you do or don't do, the computer is constantly tracking it. So the computer would show that browser was in use, but then there's no history, that the system was in use, but then there's no activity. So we know that he was cleaning up his tracks and what
I love these people.
was in use, but then there's no history, that the system was in use, but then there's no activity. So we know that he was cleaning up his tracks, and what that may be, who knows? And that's something that I think a lot of people want to know. What do we think would be there if he hadn't cleaned up his digital tracks?
The Mad Greek is now closed, but the restaurant served some vegan dishes. Law enforcement has said they found no connection to Koberger and the victims. I asked Heather and Jared about the possibility that Koberger ever visited the Mad Greek.
This was the one finding that was in that was released to the prosecution, that they came back and said the defense didn't like it, which made me think we were onto something. Like, this is great. So there is a Google Map cache file that was recovered from the Android that showed Mad Greek, and it looked like I actually have it in front of me. It looked almost like a review, or if you think about it, if you Google in Google Maps and you look up restaurants nearby, you could call it, you could get directions, you could look at a menu. So it looks like all of those things were available. Now the issue, could it have Wi-Fi in that file? Absolutely, but I don't know. The issue is Mad Greek, their Wi-Fi name was Mad Greek. So it's not helpful to see what was in that listing.
Mm-hmm.
But what Jared and I had looked at a few times, and I plan to keep testing this to figure it out exactly. If the prosecution said, Heather, is it likely that the user was in Moscow and on Google Maps said nearby restaurants or bars and Mad Greek appeared? I would say yes. But if the defense came up and said, Heather, is it possible that from Pullman, Washington, the suspect searched for restaurants in Moscow and this came up, could that happen? I would say yes. So it's not like we can tie him to the location of Mad Greek, but Mad Greek, he physically saw Mad Greek on his phone. He looked up a lot of home invasions, burglaries. He looked up a lot of home invasions, burglaries. He looked up a lot of home invasions, burglaries, co-ed killings, serial killers, burglaries, co-ed killings, serial killers.
So that's not weird, is it? It's home invasions, co-ed killings. Hey, common sense. Is that normal? I mean, many people would say, well, he was doing this for his studies. If you were doing this for your studies, you wouldn't have deleted it from your laptop. You wouldn't have deleted all the history that they found, the extra part. And they also go on to talk about his text messages to his mother. There was a lot of deleted messages in between, the correlation between his mother and him having conversation. So, red flags or no?
There was one search. I remember the first time we found it. Jared, I was sitting at the FBI and Jared was not, and I was on the phone with him. I'm like, I saw something weird, Danny Rawling. And he was like, wait a second, what's that name? And Jared looked it up and he's like, the Gainesville Ripper. He's a co-ed killer, same knife. Like there were a lot of details there that were just too eerie. And then as Jared dove into the phone, there's even more. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So again,
and I think that was November, right? The first hit for Danny Rawling.
Yeah, I think so.
November of 2022.
Yeah.
Yes.
On Christmas 2022, so after the crime, late at night and into the early morning of the 26th, he was just like working through serial killers. And the site was specifically serial killer timelines. And so it just basically has this list of a bunch of serial killers. And it seemed, based on the timing of it, that he was just clicking one, scanning, reading, and then going back and clicking the next one. And literally
Yeah. Danny Rawling, if you don't know who the Gainesville Ripper is, I have some of his videos in my library. There's plenty of people that have done stuff on Danny Rawling. I believe Salty has done some on him as well. Salty Sleuth Investigates, I think it's her channel. So go check out either one of our channels and take a look at it. You know, see if you see any similarities. I believe there is a lot of similarities between the two. On the video that I presented, I have the actual court process where the prosecuting attorney is going into detail about Danny Rawling's history. And the interesting fact about Danny Rawling is that he waited the same as Koberger for the last possible minute and pled guilty.
For a period of time just reading about serial killer timelines. And it's literally a breakdown of like how they were raised, what their childhood was like with their parents, that somebody killed a dog when they were young, or that they were beaten by their, like, it is a timeline of these people's whole lives leading up to what ultimately is them getting caught for being serial killers. But he did that into the wee hours of the morning after Christmas Day.
He did search for Danny Rawling, and that one's a really chilling search because Danny Rawling used a K-bar. He sexually assaulted his victims, and he was wearing all black, and he entered a couple of their apartments through sliding glass doors. I did some research.
That's true. That is true. So think about this as well. You know, in the beginning, whenever they were telling us about the bodies as they were being found or whatever, as they were leaking, you know, certain things before the gag order, they were saying that Kaylee was supposedly found on top of Maddie, and how people were supposedly suspecting that they were being positioned. That was interesting to me when I heard that, because that's what got me into the Danny Rawling thing, because he did position his victims. A lot of them, he positioned them after he murdered them. And when we heard that early on in this case, I thought, man, is he really copying this dude? I thought those similarities were similar. And I also thought about Stephen McDaniel. That case also brought to mind the similarities of their cases.
On that. He also searched for Harvey Glattman, Robert Hansen, Tommy Lynn Sells. Did you find any searches for Ted Bundy?
Yes.
We found the PDF, right?
Yep. Ted Bundy was in this same search time. Texting, calling. Yeah, I mean, there were numerous times where it seemed like his mother was basically saying, East Coast time, saying, I'm going to bed. And then he was West Coast time, you know, still staying up and doing whatever. But it was normal that it was almost, you know, like consistent conversations between them.
And there were a lot of exclamation points too from his mom to him, because he would confirm, like, call now. And she would say, Brian, I said I will call at 5:30. Exclamation point. And he's like, now? question mark, and she would write 5:30 exclamation point. He just had extreme obsessive behaviors, like with his mother and father, with the abnormal porn searches, with his serial killers, wiretapping, like even some of the terms, psychopath, paranoia.
Wiretapping. They go into this a lot more in their interview with Anjanette Levy. Wiretapping, that was interesting to me too, because I always wondered if that was the federal stuff that the feds were trying to get him on, was the wiretapping of the residents, or possibly other residences that he was found to be potentially doing this around Pullman or Moscow. So it's just interesting. This guy is all over the place.
One thing I would say to any family, I believe by looking at his computer that he was paranoid in the end. And I think Jared can say the same thing from looking at his phone. It's not, I don't think he was just resting easy thinking he got away with these murders. I think he knew that people were coming for him.
Now, Heather and Jared also have some thoughts on that disturbing thumbs up selfie that Brian Kohberger took 6 hours after the murders, where he is in his bathroom. Jared noticed something specifically about Kohberger's hands.
Yeah, that this thumbs up with sort of the Band-Aid. As soon as I saw it, it catches your eye, you know, because his knuckles look just so white, and like it reminded me of like scrubbing your hands for days to try to get something off. And then there's this like Band-Aid that's visible, that's, you know, like just barely visible in the picture. The hoodie picture as well, it's been like sort of a popular one in the case as well. The general behavior, as I looked at it, I would have said that criminology major and studies of criminology does not excuse you for the amount of searching, the times of day. This wasn't a healthy, you know, like I'm doing this for my college class type of activity. It seemed very different. I think the smoking gun, there really wasn't one, but for his device was his bookend that he put around these killings. To be awake at that time of the morning, turning your phone off and then turning it back on. And there's plenty of other records that we didn't access, you know, like the FBI did some sort of cell record mapping for where his phone was based on the cell towers, right? That wasn't anything that we were doing. But the moment that he turned his phone back on, you know, that they can start to take over and say, and this is where he was, right? And so for that period of time where these people were killed, he was awake and had turned his phone off, and in my opinion had prepared by killing his Wi-Fi, using VPN, clearing out his search history to do this.
So he was obsessed, in your mind, with serial killers, and had basically been planning this for some time. I mean, he bought the knife, we know, in March of 2022, but then maybe actually plotting this, Heather, you're talking October, so a month prior. So, you know, he might have had the thought in his mind in March, but the actual maybe planning and selection could have started possibly in October.
Yeah, the gap of why that far back only on browser was weird to me. It didn't make much sense. And I'm not sure if that's possibly when he decided he was going to be more of an incognito browser. Who knows? It was just really bizarre behavior. And then there were also, Jared, do you remember I saw the show or movie American Psycho just a few times, and how much the guy loved himself and would take selfies in the mirror, and how clean he would want to be, and just examining his body. He seemed to do those same types of things.
Yeah, lots of like flexing muscles, selfies, half clothed, like that. There's numerous instances of that on his phone. There was also he spent a lot of time on Reddit, and especially post-crime. He was, I mean, there's tons of history of him looking into like the Idaho murders on Reddit.
Mm.
And that's actually another thing that stood out is this wasn't just someone who was like, hey, I'm interested in the case. He was going and downloading the Moscow press releases to his device. Like not just taking a look at what the news said, but like almost like saving everything that they populated. There was a Reddit post that it appears that he made based on his emails where he was looking for ex-cons to participate in some study, and people were like emailing him. And ultimately you see Reddit suspends him, which I think was, at time of arrest. And
Maybe one of those ex-cons was Farley. Maybe that's how he got into connection with Farley. What do y'all think? Man, this is some good stuff. This is some good stuff right here.
Application to the world. But there was also a really interesting sort of pattern of things where he read something on the news that said, police still looking for Hyundai Elantra, white in color, this year to this year, make and model. Within minutes, he searches for a car detailing place and then starts to shop for used cars. So it was almost like...
So why would he search for a car detailing place and try to sell his damn car? Is that not a red flag? Is that not a red flag? Tell me. Is that not a red flag to y'all? I know for a lot of people it's not weird at all. People sell their cars every day. People detail their cars every day. But the moment that you find out that your car is one of the vehicles that's being looked as a potential suspect, you start looking for detailing and shopping around to sell your car?
I realize that they know my car. I have to get rid of it and get something different. So like, again, does a normal person look to clean their car before they sell it? Sure. He spent a lot of time on Reddit, and especially post-crime. There's tons of history of him looking into like the Idaho murders on Reddit. And that's actually another thing that stood out is this wasn't just someone who was like, hey, I'm interested in the case. He was going and downloading the Moscow press releases to his device. Like not just taking a look at what the news said, but like almost like saving everything that they populated.
Brian Kohberger is serving his 4 consecutive life sentences in Idaho's maximum security institution. I want to turn now to Larry Levine. He is the director.
Oh God, this guy cracks me the hell up. He's like the token criminal, right? Look at him though. He looks like one of those stand-in guys that plays a mugger in a B-rated movie. You know what I mean? It's like, wow. Yeah, the star prisoner. This guy just cracks me up.
And founder of Wall Street Prison Consultants, also the author of Prison Politics 101, a how-to guide to get along and get by behind prison walls. Larry, welcome back to Crime Fix. I appreciate you coming back on. I want your response to all of this news about Brian Kohberger allegedly, I say allegedly because I haven't heard back from the prison yet, being tortured and tormented through the vents by other inmates in J Block.
Yeah, well, he's not being tortured. It's more of like, okay, psychologically tortured, but this stuff happens. They're telling him they're going to kill him. They're going to get to his family. They're going to rape him. They're yelling through the vents. They're pounding on the walls. They're getting into his head. But when it comes down to it, they can't, there's nothing that can be done. They can't get to him. And the guy's in prison. He killed 4 kids. What does he expect? He doesn't have a popular crime or anything. A bank robber would get more respect than him. A drug dealer. This guy's got nothing coming. And think of it like this. The cops hate him too. There's no question about that. And it's like when I was in custody, we had people that were there for kiddie porn. And they would lie and say they were there for fraud or drugs or something. And then the cops would be the ones that would tell the inmates what they were there for because the cops didn't like him either. So
You think any of his old cronies would be able to say, "Look, that's Larry, bro. That's Larry from, C Block. We don't know who you are, Larry. It's those shade that just makes you invisible, bro. Makes you invisible." He already ratted out some of his fellow inmates. He's really not that smart. You're right. Weird voice for wow. Yes, exactly, Rondi. Exactly. It's like, come on, take the shades off. Let's see what you really look like, Larry.
the inmates could torment him or torment them. So the cops are under no real obligation to do anything to stop this. He's just going to have to suck it up now for the rest of his life. That's a fact.
The reporting is, and we heard from Chris McDonough earlier in the program. He is getting this word. He has a lot of sources. He's a former law enforcement officer. He is getting the word that Kohberger is complaining about this, that he doesn't like it. Oh well. I mean this is kind of how prison works.
Well,
there's you come in and you're a well-known defendant. There's going to be a level of hazing. He is in J Block. He's in long-term restrictive housing. So he is in a cell 23 hours a day. He gets out in the rec yard for 1 hour a day. Every time he's moved anywhere in this prison, he is in restraints and he gets to shower every other.
I agree with you, Mountain Mama. You'd think his voice would be like, "Hello, my name's Larry. How are y'all doing?" He's going to be in trouble every step of the way. They're going to be trying to get him. You know that. I know that. Let's get on with it. On with the show. He doesn't have that voice.
Other day. So, he's not in a good spot. And I'm assuming, even though there's going to be some bad dudes in J Block, because if you're in long-term restrictive housing, you're there for a long time, and there's a reason you're in those, cells 23 hours a day. They're probably like, the prison guards are probably like, well, this is just how it goes. You're going to kind of get hazed. You're going to get razzed. And I'm assuming it's their job to keep him safe and to keep everything in order, but they don't care if people are harassing him through the vents.
Kohberger's just going to have to suck it up. Now he's facing the realities of prison life.
He might be sucking it up for all we know, Larry. Peru's on his radar.
A Supreme Court justice, 50 years ago, I think it was Thurgood Marshall, that said that an inmate's civil rights do not stop at the prison gates. So he has some civil rights, but that's the right to be safe. He is safe. He's locked in a cell. These other people can't get to him. He's filing grievances about being harassed and being hazed. Big deal. Nobody cares. But eventually, he should be concerned about, scared, concerned. He should be concerned about his life for the rest of his life, because sooner or later, someone will get to him. Look at Jeffrey Dahmer. Look at Whitey Bulger. Look at Ramirez, the Night Stalker. All these people were in secure custody, and they got to every one of them. And maybe this is going through Kohberger's head. I don't know. But every little noise he hears, the rumors, the pounding, and it's all going round and round in his head. And I imagine it is driving him nuts. And somebody will take him out, and that person will get folk hero status for the rest of their life.
Folk hero status.
I wanted to ask you about that, because it is the prison's job, the Department of Corrections, to keep him safe. It's their job to keep all of the prisoners safe. But we know the reality of that. You, especially, Larry, know the reality of that. I've seen it in other high-profile cases. They can't always keep these people safe. And sometimes they transfer them out of state. They have these interstate compact deals or what have you.
Chris Watts, there's an example.
Yes. And so I saw it I'm watching it right now unfold in the Pike County massacre case in Ohio. They have transferred 2 of the defendants in that case out of state. We don't even know where Jake Wagner has been transferred because they couldn't keep him safe in an Ohio prison. And he's considered a snitch. So I'm kind of like, I'm thinking to myself, if he's in long-term restrictive housing and he's in a cell 23 hours a day, he gets out in the rec yard 1 hour a day. I'm wondering, does that mean he's kind of isolated in that rec yard? Where could he possibly be in danger? Because maybe like 5 years down the road, they move him into Gen Pop.
No.
Yikes. Where could he be in danger?
He's in danger when he dropped the soap, Anjanette. He's in danger.
Maybe a spaceship will land outside your studio too. There never, ever in a million evers going to put this into general population. They know immediately what will happen to him. But here's what will happen. You brought up an interesting point. Let's go 5 years down the road. It's not as popular. It's not as high profile. Things slip through. Somebody has an opportunity. A door. Oh my God. Somebody left the door unlocked. He was left unsupervised in the shower and someone else got in there. Somebody got to his food and put glass or poison in his food. It's just a matter of time that someone will get to him. I mean, you can manipulate staff. In my book, Prison Politics 101, I teach inmates. I sent a copy of it into them. I teach inmates how to manipulate staff, how to manipulate other inmates. So a situation will occur that somebody eventually will get to him, and that's a fact, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Absolutely nothing.
When I look at Brian Kohberger, this is not somebody who was out on the street doing a drug hit or something to that effect. You know, this is not like a gang murder, a street murder. This is somebody who meticulously in his mind, I mean, he didn't do a good enough job to not get caught, but he did a meticulous job of planning this. He wanted to go into a house and kill people. He was determined to do that. And we're learning more details about this. And he's somebody who is like studying to get a PhD. Okay. So, you know, this is not some guy.
Larry's getting pissed off. He's turning red. His cheeks are getting red. What is wrong with Larry? Look at him. His cheeks are red. He's like, no, you're wrong. That's not right. I got the right answer for you. Let me tell you about it.
I think would typically think of as being a typical J Block resident, right? Okay. So I look at it that way. This is not somebody who thought, I'm assuming he didn't think he was going to get caught or hoped he didn't. Well, so okay. he is like totally probably out of his element, even though he's got the criminal mind and he's in the right place. He is out of his element in J Block.
Absolutely, because he's with real criminals.
Correct. And he is a real criminal, but you know what I'm saying.
He is, but all right, take the person who goes and commits, like I'm getting a lot of people who have PPP fraud from COVID. They mistakenly filled out an application and signed their name. They made poor choices. He knowingly killed these people. And I don't think that Kohberger, as much as I think he's a piece of crap, I don't think he went into that house knowing he was going to kill 4 people, because he had really no idea who was there, what room they would be in. He stumbled upon these people. And he killed people as he went through the house because they knew he was there. They discovered him. Now, do you really think he went there with the intent of killing her? Maybe not. Maybe he went there with the intent of raping her. But in his mind, because the guy's cuckoo, things got out of control. One thing led to another. I'm not fully convinced he went in there with the intent of killing 4 people. I mean, why didn't he kill?
I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't think he went in there to kill 4 people. I think he maybe went in there targeting 1, and it's in his mind, it spiraled out of control. I think he's not as smart as he thinks he is. But I want to go back to you sending him the book. You sent him the book. Did you ever hear back from him?
No, I never heard anything back from him. I know that he got the book. The book's on Amazon because like I sent it to Puff Daddy and Luigi and it got returned. I sent it to Just Lane Maxwell. She got it in. And when they return it and they reject
They even put this picture while this dude is talking. It's like, oh, even Brian doesn't even want to hear it. He sent it to P. Diddy and it got returned.
it to Amazon, I get a notice of rejection. I never got a rejection notice on Kohlberger, so I know he got it. And he has a lot of time on his hands. So maybe he did read it. He should live by my book because this might just save his life one day.
The families of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, they're still grieving, and they're doing their best in their own ways to move forward, remembering their beautiful children. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.
Thank you, Anjanette. We love your show on YouTube. If you're watching this or happen to watch this, we love your show. You know, God, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about that guy. I mean, he is on Banfield a lot, but Anjanette was doing something that Ashley doesn't do. Ashley lets him sit there and run off the rails and just talk and talk and talk. And Jeanette was just talking, not letting him answer the questions. She was asking questions, but she wasn't letting him answer them, which I thought was pretty damn funny in itself. So what do y'all think about this whole situation? I mean, this video, it did highlight a lot of different things. Even though those of us that watched the 2020 thing, it was kind of the same thing. But this one actually, the professionals were talking, the detective, the people in charge that were on the scene were the actual ones talking. So all that mess about frame job or corruption or all this stuff that you hear about daily, I mean, could there have been some wrong turns in that investigation? Who am I to say yes or no? Because I'm sure there were some things that were done that maybe weren't by the book specifically, but they weren't enough to break the law. So, did you hear what I just said? There's a lot of people that live by this mentality. I'm pushing the envelope, but I'm not breaking the law. So, for them to sit on here on these platforms and say, well, the cops got it wrong. The FBI got it wrong. They took shortcuts. They did this. They did that. The fact of the matter is they caught this guy in record time. They caught this guy in record time. You remember? They were saying that this case could possibly go cold. Remember? Everybody was saying, well, the police aren't doing their job. The police are messing it up. This and that and the other. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get that mugshot of Brian Christopher Koberger. Then all of a sudden, people want truth. They want transparency. Not the channel, but they want that in sequence. They want to be mindful of how they got to Brian. Well, if this episode didn't show you how they got to him, because one thing that I used to hear in the very beginning, over and over, almost daily, they have no evidence. All they have is the sheath. All they have is the sheath. That's all the evidence they got. They got no evidence. They got no evidence. Well, you know what we heard tonight and what we've been hearing is indeed they had plenty of evidence. But people do not see this as evidence because it's not in the house. It's circumstantial, meaning that it paints a picture of the red flag that led to this individual being more the killer than not. And the simple fact, what the word chat that he said more than one time, type that in the chat so people see this. What that word that starts with a G, I was going to put, my title was originally said it ain't nothing but a G thing. You know, thinking guilty. There you go. So, you know, I changed it, but that's what the title was going to be. Nothing but a G thing. G for guilty. That's what you heard more often than not. So all this other stuff, had there been a trial, there could have been a possibility that guilty, 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 guilty. And there you should hang until you are dead, dead, dead. You have anything to say for yourself, Mr. Bonnie? You can go to hell, hell, hell. Do y'all know what movie that is? I think you do. Well, Brian was guilty. Billy the Kid was guilty. They caught Brian. And they killed Billy, I'm sure. But once again, my name is 12 Gauge. And this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. If you like what you saw today, or you enjoyed your time here, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. I'm not monetized, so whatever you do, it doesn't affect me one way or the other. And I'm really happy to do these without monetization. It means a lot more to me. Check out the channel. There are plenty of videos in there. Plenty of videos. So once again, I hope that y'all have a wonderful week. It is my birthday week. So I don't know how much I'll be on this week. I got a very busy week ahead. For those of you that have birthdays coming up, happy early birthday. And take care of yourself. Be safe. And always watch your six. Maestro, cue that music.